be great. Today's talk is called Hurt, Broken, Lost, Empty. You saw that in Tommy's talk, didn't you? And so many people on this planet are hurt, lost, empty, and broken. And I'm going to talk to you today about one of my heroes who fits into each one of those categories. Before I do that, can I share a story which kind of linked to this from Mission Week last week? I was supposed to be meeting people in Castle Park, and I was running around 30 minutes late. And the people in Castle Park were sharing their heart about Jesus, okay? So you're always going to get people who do not want to know, and you really respect that. It's really important. There's a right time for everything. And there are some people who fall into the category of hurt and broken and lost and empty and really want to know about Jesus. So this team of people were in Castle Park. I was late. I didn't know where they were. And I got into the park, and I got halfway down, and I heard really loud shouting. Rah, 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 with some F's and some expletives in there. Get away from me! Now my heart sank, because I thought, oh my gosh, that's the reaction they're getting from somebody in the park. Somebody feels hassled and bothered. That was my response. I thought, I'm staying away from that area. But instead, strangely enough, I saw three of the team running towards this guy in the park. He was a homeless guy. His hair was wild. He had bags around him. He was really challenged. And what had happened was, his response wasn't to people talking to him about Jesus. His response was because of being hassled by a group of guys in the park for being homeless. And what the team did, it was like love was magnetic. They were drawn to him. They didn't run away from him. My first instinct was to stay away. Their first instinct was, let's run to where the pain is. And they brought him food. And they talked to him. And the guy said, for the first time for many years, he felt like he was in his right mind. It was a beautiful thing. And my hero is very much like that man in the park. And you look at the life of Jesus, and he was drawn to those people who are hurt and broken and lost and empty. And at any stage of our life, we can still feel like that. And we can still draw near to Jesus. My hero is a guy whom I believe had some sort of breakdown in life. Severe mental breakdown. To the extent where he left his family, he left his town, and he took himself away, and he decided to live, or he lived by himself, isolated himself, and became alone. And in fact, he went into graveyards quite often. He could be violent. People tried to restrain him, but he was a lost cause in the world's eyes. There wasn't a solution for this man who is one of my heroes. He was so tormented that he cut himself with stones because he was hurting so badly. One day he encountered Jesus, just a chance encounter, and everything changed for this man. And he was restored and healed, renewed, and he took himself back, and he went back to his hometown. He went back to his family, and this guy was instantly changed, completely restored. We can read about this man in Mark chapter 5, and it's a disturbing story in many ways and provoking. But I think let's have a quick look at the story of this man who's one of my heroes, who had health challenges the world couldn't provide a solution for. But there is a supernatural solution, a super and a natural solution, and his name is Jesus. So we start at chapter 4, where Jesus has been teaching all day long from a boat. There are so many people listening to Jesus that Jesus is teaching from a boat. And at the end of the day, he and his disciples decide to row across Lake Galilee. So the map there shows, you see that blue blob in the middle is Lake Galilee. Lake Galilee is apparently 13 miles in length, 8 miles in width. So whatever that row was, it was a long rowing journey. And I'm going to read what happened on that journey. So they've had a long, long day, and they're in for a long night. Mark chapter 4, verse 35. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him, and a furious squall came up. Don't you love that? A furious squall. Have you ever experienced a furious squall in your life? Maybe you're going through that now. But a furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. And Jesus was on the stern, sleeping on a cushion. Come on, Jesus. The disciples woke him up and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Be quiet, be still." Then the wind died down and it was completely calm. And he said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" But they were terrified, and they asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." "Who is this?" the disciples said, and they were terrified at the power that they saw in Jesus. And that is a question that every single human being on this planet during a lifetime has to answer. Who is this Jesus? And Christian, I don't know what storm you're facing. I don't know what's happening in your life at the moment, but we wake Jesus in the boat when we pray, and we can cry out to him, "God, still the storm." He's faithful. At this point, we move to Mark chapter 5, where we meet our hero, or certainly my hero. Sorry about this. I think the clicker has stopped working, so thank you, Liz. Thank you so much. We read in Mark chapter 5, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. And when Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This is the man I told you all about. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. He'd often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. The guy was in agony. And Luke says in his gospel that many times he'd been seized, though he was chained hand and foot and kept under guard. He had broken his chains and been driven by the demon into solitary places. And Luke also says that for a long time this man had not worn clothes or lived in a house. Have you ever experienced a really painful response when everything that you needed was compassion, but everything that you experienced felt like cruelty? Jesus breaks our chains. You know, and this guy in the tombs was like the guy in the park. You wouldn't really want to meet him. It wasn't an attractive prospect. I looked online, and I hate to say that in some countries they still chain people who have mental health conditions. I looked at that. You know, everything in my heart says, "Send me, Lord." People who are chained because of torment. So the pain that this guy had experienced, the trauma, until he's met by Jesus, who brings freedom. Jesus was a real person. He's real today. I looked at the latest stats on self-harm for 23 to 24 on self-harm from a website called Young Minds. And it said almost 1/3, that's 32.8% of 17 to 24-year-olds have self-harmed or attempted to self-harm at some point. And this rises to 69.5% of young people with a probable mental health condition. These are people, their solution for pain is to create pain. Sometimes the pain is so unbearable. Where do we go with that? Do we drown it with alcohol? Do we take drugs because it creates a different reality for us? I'm telling you, Jesus is alive today and changing lives. Thank you, Liz. The world offers few solutions. Continuing with the story, when he saw Jesus from a distance, He ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." So imagine the scene, this crazy guy running at Jesus. And I don't think he was bringing a bunch of flowers to him. I don't. It just so happened that he fell in front of Jesus. And I think because of the authority that Jesus carried, he falls and kneels down on his feet. But the spiritual turbulence in this guy recognizes Jesus for who he is. So isn't it kind of ironic that the disciples have been with Jesus for almost 3 years, perhaps not that long at this stage, don't know who Jesus is, but in the spiritual realms, Jesus is recognized as the Son of God. It's a question we have to answer for ourselves. We know historically that Jesus lived. We know historically that he rose from the dead and appeared again many times. Millions, billions of lives across the planet have been changed by the reality of Jesus. C.S. Lewis says, "A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool. You can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He has not left that open to us. He did not intend to." And Bono said in 2013, the lead singer of U2, "Jesus isn't letting you off the hook. The scriptures don't let you off the hook so easily. When people say, good teacher, prophet, really nice guy, this is not how Jesus thought of himself. So you're left with a challenge in that, which is either Jesus was who he said he was, or a complete and utter nutcase. You have to make a choice on that. And I believe that Jesus was, the Son of God. There's no sitting on the fence. And I've come across people, I did in town, a beautiful guy who said, my wife is a Christian, but I'm not decided. I'm going to sit on the fence and I'm going to find out when I die, aren't I? And I thought, what a tragedy. Bless him. I mean that with real compassion. I don't mean that with judgment. When you're offered the winning lottery ticket for the rest of eternity, and you say, I'm not going to go near. I'm going to leave it and its gifts and its treasures. I'm going to just park it because I don't understand it. Make a decision to understand it. You've seen the evidence in the people around you. Make a decision to understand. I really wanted to, thank you, Liz, bypass the next bit of the story. I've got 2,000 reasons why to bypass this bit, but I can't gloss over it as if it never happened, because it did. But there's really important things that we can learn about the next bit of our story. So Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. And when they came to Jesus, they saw that the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there, dressed and in his right mind. And they were afraid. The same word for fear that the disciples used when they too saw the power of Jesus. Those who had seen it told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man and told about the pigs as well. Then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. Such an unusual reaction, isn't it? Leave our region. And I remember reading this story in the early days of being a Christian, being so angry with Jesus. Jesus, what are you doing? Those animals. You let those 2,000 pigs go. And it's so easy to miss the pearl when we're looking at the pigs. There are several different theories for this incident with the pigs. In relation to demonology and demons, C.S. Lewis said, I don't know what you think, but what C.S. Lewis said is there are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. They themselves are equally pleased by both errors and hail a materialist or a magician with the same delight. But the fact is, Jesus had absolute power over those spiritual realms of darkness. They know who Jesus is. They call him the Son of God. Jesus isn't an equal power with the evil in this world. Jesus is the ultimate power. The aim of these forces of evil is to create death and to create suffering. I worked in the prison service for 7 years as a drug and alcohol counselling. And in my time there, you'd think I'd met some pretty evil people, huh? But I didn't. I met people who were hurt and broken and lonely and afraid. People who've made decisions based on their circumstances. I would perhaps say, I don't know, 1% of the prison population you would describe as emanating evil, and the rest were hurt and broken, making wrong choices in difficult circumstances. What do we make of the pigs and their destruction? There are different views. I researched all the views. Perhaps Jesus didn't care about the pigs and he just sends them to their death. I don't think so. It doesn't stack up with a God who looks like love and who is loving and kind, a God who named the animals, a God who looked after the sparrows, feeds the sparrows and the birds of the field. That doesn't stack up. Perhaps he doesn't care about the pigs' owners who lost their livelihood, because we know that in Israel, with Hebrews, pigs were unclean animals. So maybe Jesus sent them to their death and didn't care. And again, doesn't stack up with a God who looks like love and not like judgment. Why should we care? Some scholars say. And when you come up with these issues in life, when you come up with passages like that, go deeper, explore and find your answers. One really interesting interpretation was that when the demon spoke and said his name was Legion, so interesting, that culturally Israel had been taken over by the Romans in 63 BC. And the Romans left their armies in Israel. They occupied the planet. And Roman army was divided into legions. And so one of the scholars said that actually when the demon said legion and the pigs then ran into the sea and were all destroyed, it was reminiscent, or it was an example of Jesus' power, how he could have destroyed the populating Roman army but chose not to. And interesting, a lot of these views are interesting. My view is that Jesus didn't send the pigs to their destruction. He didn't. The demons asked for permission to populate the pigs. And it was those demonic forces, that compulsion, that drove the pigs to run down. It's also inexplicable. Pigs can swim. Did you know that? Why did the pigs drown? And there is a driving force on this planet which wants to force people into desperate situations. My own life, 2012, before Kingsland. I was a Christian. I'd been out of church for many years, for a number of reasons. But 2012 was the year, and I was absolutely driven by suicidal depression. I loved Jesus at that time. And I'm so grateful. Over the course of that year, I did so many things to demonstrate to myself how worthless I was. And I took risks with my life in the hope that I would cross the line and that I would die because I'd had enough. But if you're ever in that situation, please know that God has a purpose for your life. And that sometimes working through these things is not about an instantaneous meeting, but it's about walking out the journey with Jesus, and he brings healing. And I'm so grateful. I'm so wonderfully free from depression, suicidal depression, fear, anxiety. That's a day-by-day walk. So that's why this guy in the Bible is one of my heroes. Imagine the compulsion in him, the push in him, the drive in him to kill himself. And I don't know whether you've ever been in that position or whether you're in that position now, but I would just say that God has a purpose for your life and a plan to bring you out from this time, to bring you into a different place. The word afraid, which was the reaction of the people in Greek, was phobio. It means terrified. They were absolutely terrified of the awesome power of Jesus himself. But that's the Greek word up there for in his right mind. Jesus brings restoration. You know, it's not always an instantaneous journey, but it's a walk-through journey, isn't it, Joe? I'm going to just pick on Joe. It's a walking journey, isn't it, Joe? It's not always just something happened and kaboom, I'm in my right mind. Sometimes it's a walking through. So if you have compulsions to self-harm, if you feel like your mental health is shot through, and Jesus is in the boat with you in the furious squall, and you can call upon him. Just going to finish the story now. As Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. And Jesus did not let him, but said, "Go to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you." And so the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis, which is the 10 cities, how much Jesus had done for him. And all the people were amazed. Just begs the question, what has Jesus done for you? And who are we telling? Some people say to me, Christianity is just a crutch, isn't it? You know, I think of Karl Marx, who said, religion is the opiate of the masses. Let's subdue the masses with something that keeps them quiet. But actually, Jesus isn't a religion. He is a relationship. He's real and powerful and vibrant and alive. And if you said to me, isn't Christianity a crutch? I would say, yeah, it really is, to begin with. But then you become transformed. Thank you. You become transformed into a super athlete on this planet. Not physically, look at me. Not a physical, but just a human being who is Olympic standard because of Jesus. What did Jesus say? Bring yourself into his presence. Bring yourself, commit your life to him. Give your life to him. He won't disappoint you. And some of you are really struggling with disappointment right now. I just sense God saying that. That some of you are really struggling. You're struggling with the reactions of other people, the way people have treated you in the past, maybe how people are treating you now. But Jesus is with you in the squall. He won't let you down. You can trust him. Just call upon him. So hurt, broken, lost, and empty. These are the people like me, who Jesus came to rescue. And then he brings transformation into hurt becomes healed, broken becomes restored, lost becomes found, empty becomes an invitation into fullness. What about you? Have you made that decision for Jesus? Or do you need more evidence? If you need more evidence, come to Alpha. Monday the 14th, 7:45. Come join the debate. Is it healing, restoration, a sense of reassurance that you need that he's with you? Is it the fullness of God you need? He's ready. He's ready for that.